So what is skill gap? Skill gap is basically the gap between demand and supply of particular skills at any given point of time. For example, if today there is a requirement of 15 overlock operators in the factory, but the availability is only 12 operators. So then there is a skill gap of 3 operators for this particular skill type. There is another dimension of skill gap. That would be if the availability of skills is there, but not at the proficiency level that is required. So if, for example, for a line, the industrial engineering department decides that the requirement is of an overlock operator with a required cycle time. There are operators available, but let's say if the operators are not available at that required cycle time and their proficiency levels are lower, so only lower efficiency operators are available, then that would also be a skill gap. Management of skill gap is one of the most important efficiency drivers in a garment factory. The factories that manage this aspect well would have lower cost per minute for overall same cost structure. So let's look at the 3 primary reasons why skill gap gets created in factories. The first is unplanned absenteeism. Now let's first understand that absenteeism is normal, right? So all employees, they need to take some time off the work to attend to various requirements. They could be personal requirements such as festivals or family functions or family events, or they need to take care of some other matters such as banks or related to government or something else, or they may fall sick, or there could be any other reason for which the employees would need to take some days off their work schedule every month and every year, etc. So absenteeism itself is not a problem, but absenteeism becomes a problem in 2 scenarios. The first, if the rate of absenteeism is very high, then it starts becoming a challenge. And the second scenario is when the absenteeism is unplanned or uninformed. Now while the rate of absenteeism is high in general for garment factories, but that is something that still they are used to, because the industry is used to that level of absenteeism, a certain amount of absenteeism, and that goes into planning. The primary challenge comes in is because most of this absenteeism in many factories is unplanned or uninformed. So the employees do not inform in advance that they are planning to be absent the next day. The factories only come to know about it when they don't show up, and that's when it becomes a planning challenge. The second primary reason for the skill gap is uninformed attrition. Now garment industry, again, along with absenteeism, it faces high attrition levels. And it is not unusual to see monthly attrition levels of 8 to 10% or even higher among the factory workers. While attrition has an inherent cost associated with it, to find replacement people and some productivity loss, learning curve, etc., the real challenge for factories is uninformed attrition, which creates sudden skill gaps which are not planned for. And the third primary reason for the creation of skill gaps is the requirement of new kinds of skills. And this happens because from time to time factories would take up orders for which they may not necessarily have all the necessary execution skills within the factory premises or within the existing resources. So this would cause a skill gap between what is available in-house and what is required in the upcoming production line. And this needs to be planned for in terms of the recruitment of new staff or training of the existing staff to fulfill that skill gap.